Philip Harrington, the man behind American Song, late 80s on the Sunset Strip, and the band's on the verge of breaking big. And like you said, there were these different levels of girls out in LA. And, you know, there was some where we would see these girls that were going to, there were these other clubs like the Roxbury, and then there was some other club around the corner below where Elektra Records was there at the end of Sunset. This is where the cars, the Lamborghinis, and all the shiny suits, the guys in the shiny suits, and all those filthy rich people went. And the girls that went to those places, you went, oh my God, what in the hell? And I remember we would always park down at the far end of it's Sunset. And we would park like down past the Gil Turner's liquor store, the one down at the end, past Gazzarri's. We would park somewhere off the side street there. And so we would walk by and we would see girls heading towards that upper end club. And here we are traipsing down with our beer in our pockets and a stack of flyers shoved down the back of our pants. And we see these girls, and we would always, anytime we saw a girl, whether it was at a stoplight or whatever, it was always, hey, get that girl a flyer. Hey, go talk to those girls. So we see these girls walk in the other direction, and we're like, you know, hey, and we're, you know, how you doing? And that, you know, doing our whole spiel. And they're like, you guys are cool. If you get a record deal, call us. And they literally, like, it's like you can join our club, but you're going to have to get that brass ring first.
Yeah.
And it really was like there was the AAA, there was AA, there was single A, there was there was those that you're like, I don't let anybody see who's coming over to the house tonight. And then there was the unattainable, you know, and you had to be assigned, just like I remember reading an article with Savannah, the porn actress Savannah. And she said she never would date an unsigned musician, you know, a suitcase pimp. You had to have a record deal in order to in order to date her.
Yeah, that record deal was like it was like a slip, a license. You could go up just a massive notch. And I tried to tell in the book too that you guys were doing that in Hollywood, which was like, automatically, Hollywood is the coolest place in the United States. Everything that was cool came from Southern California. Like everything I grew up with in the 80s, BMX, skateboarding culture, music, fashion, movies, all came from Southern California. So to you guys be killing it in LA, you were, to the rest of the world, you're like it. But to the people that lived in LA, they were going for that, you know, that extra notch or two. But, you know, yeah.
The amazing thing was, you know, none of us had money, right? And some of us I had day jobs at different points in times. I worked in a pawn shop for a while. I worked at a boutique hotel. You know, so I would have tip money and a few bucks in my pocket sometimes. But, you know, it's like some of the greatest times of my life, I would have $5 in my pocket.
Yeah.
And the bass player would come knock on my door. Hey man, let's go out tonight. How much, you got any money? And I go, yeah, I got $5. You good? Cool. I got $5 too. We can go to this. And here's the thing. A 12-pack back then was like, of Coors was like $4.99 or something like that. So we could get a 12, we get a 12-pack for $5. And this was every time we went down to the strip, it was swing by the 7-Eleven or whatever it was. We were out in the valley, so we had to go over the hill. So we'd stop, we'd get the 12-pack, we crack them open, you know, keeping them down, roll. This is all before now, all this, stuff. We did a lot of stuff back then, which I would not recommend anybody. Do not do what we did. We are not role models, as they said in the decline of civilization. But we would knock back a couple, then we'd get find our parking spot. We'd pound like two or three, so that when we got out there, we were in that zone, and we just didn't care. We didn't care about getting rejected, because you will get rejected. If you go talk to 100 girls, there's a good chance 40% are going to be like, get away from me. I'm here to see Lip Switch, or I'm here to see Mad Moxie, or whatever, you know? And, but you learn so much being able to approach. But I got later in life where I knew I could always do that. I knew I could always enter a party and take over the room, or do whatever. But now I got to a point where I'm like, I just want to sit in a corner quietly, and I'll listen to everything everybody else is talking about, and I'll learn about them, and I'll just be silent in the corner.
Now, did you see a huge difference when Bill Gazzarri died?
That's something that's an interesting point that you made in the book. The fact that when he died, and we were actually playing Gazzarri's around about that time. We started getting a call, which Gazzarri's wasn't considered like the hippest club on the strip at certain times, right? But we started getting the call to play it and headline. And so we said, you know what? Yeah, why not? So we were doing it. And then shortly after that, maybe it was a year or two, I can't remember the timeline, but I remember hearing him die, and then the whole flyer thing with the cops coming down. I mean, dude, we were right in the thick of that, and hearing about the fine you would get and all that. So we devised a new system, because one, we didn't go the big everybody go out and tease their hair and all be together. It was usually just me and the bass player going out and talking to as many girls as we could, and it was a lot more stealth. So we got postcard size flyers that were on like card stock, and we shoved them in the back, in the back of our shirt, or tucked them in our pants or whatever. So when we're walking down the street, we got nothing in our hands, and we could then engage. Hey, and then if we really thought somebody was not going to just toss it on the ground, it wasn't like, hey, a lot of bands would do this. They would go, hey, my band's playing on Friday, and they just hand out the flyer. I'm like, dude, that's not going to get people to go. It's like, it's sales.
Yes.
So you have to go up, you have to ask them about themselves, learn something about them, find some common ground. Oh, you like Van Halen, or you like this, or you like funk, or hey, do you guys like rap, or whatever it is that you try to find common ground with. And then you make that connection. And we would have a clipboard with name, address, phone number. So we would make them fill that out, and then I would go and write, blonde, dad works at record label. And so I could then, because we would work the phones after doing all that. We will work the phones and call up, and then I would use my notes to go, oh, hey, remember me? Remember we were talking about rap, or we were talking about this, and I would remember certain things about their features, so that way when I talked to them, it was like she remembered me, I remembered her.
Yeah.
And then you build a sort of a relationship, in that they will come to the show, and you tell all of them that you're going to hang out with them after the show. But usually you've got one girl that you've already arranged that you're going to sneak off with, at the end of the night.
Yeah, that was something they all said, that you have to have a relationship with them. And they said that's why this scene as a whole, it worked because they weren't going out like you said, hey, here's my flyer. They said we were trying to be their friends, and they were developing relationships, inviting these people to parties. And Keith Kessinger, he just said you have to be their friend. He says you're going to hang out with them, and he said that's how like Blackboard Jungle and Swingington got a huge following. They hung out with everybody. He said they were always having parties. They're hanging out with people. If they met you on the street, and he said people loved them because they felt, close to them. And you still see that today. Blackboard Jungle, they have a reunion every year. The diehards, I mean, they have a ton of diehard fans. They never miss a reunion because they felt, part of them coming up. Yeah, that's a very good point.
You had to know that you can't just sleep with as many as you want and expect them to all be happy about it and come to your show. That's going to cause so many problems. So obviously there would be instances where you might, but you did much better if you kept them as friends, because they would keep coming back. They wouldn't get aggravated because you weren't with them, because you've never been with them, and they would help you out more. They would go, hey, I brought you guys some groceries. I know you guys are starving, or hey, you let me take you guys out to lunch. Or we had girls pay for photo shoots, or they would bring their sister works at a men's store, and we're going to bring all these like really nice suits, and we want to dress you guys up in these nice suits and take photos of you guys for your flyers. I'm like, cool.
Wow.
So stuff like that would, or we're going to do a photo shoot, or we're going to do this, and you got that because you didn't just, blow it up. Basically, have fun and go, see you, dude. Thanks. I mean, that, a lot of guys did that. And we would have people like our friends who like, hey man, that girl's really a good fan of the band. Don't screw this up. Don't tick her off. Like you would kind of say, look, man, if you do that too much, you're gonna ruin your fan base.
Yeah, you'll scare away your fan club. You want your fan club to grow, and I think that's kind of missing in today's music atmosphere too. There's you don't see fan clubs anymore. I know that's very old, but when I grew up, fan clubs were like that was an important part. When you really into a band, you join their fan club and you get some cool extra stuff, and it just made you appreciate them that much more when you're, felt like you're on the inside track.
There was so much more mystique
Yes.
back then. Now
Yep.
everything is every day, constant post, and I'm guilty of it because I have to do it. I have to put out a video every day, or else I feel, at least I feel compelled to do a video every day. And if you don't, it's somebody else is filling that algorithm. So
Well,
I see the guy Youngblood. Now I'm on the fence whether I like this guy or not, but I do see that he's got good performance skills, and he's driving women crazy in a way that I saw in Elvis and David Lee Roth and different performers over the years.
charisma.
And he's got charisma, and he knows how to move, and he knows how to work them up into a frenzy and all that. And that's what a great front man does. It's the sex and the swagger has to be there, and that's been missing for a long time.
I was just gonna say that. I think through a large part of the '90s, definitely the 2000s, where was the entertaining frontman? I mean, I grew up in David Lee Roth. He might, if you go to a Van Halen concert, he's gonna miss a line here or sing off key, but you're gonna be entertained. And that's where there's a few guys in the book, Dr. Starr, Doug Starr, Adam. they just had that quality that is, defined good looks, a good voice with a range, because they got to do ballads and they got to do the harder stuff. And then they got to be able to entertain and move like an athlete while staying in key. Not an easy task. But those guys had it. And there's a lot of guys that had it.
Yeah. That's what made it so hard. And those both guys that you mentioned, Dr. Starr is another one. I didn't know him when I was out there, but now going back and seeing footage of him, going, man, this dude was killing it.
Yeah.
He was killing it. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have found that guy, and gotten that guy in my band. But because you did have to have all of those things, dude, I'm telling you, it was nearly impossible to find the perfect front man. We searched and searched and searched, and you'd find one that sings good, but doesn't look that great.
Doesn't look good. Yeah.
Or he looks great, but he doesn't sing that good. Or he looks good and he sings great, but he can't move on stage. He's very stiff.
Yep.
Or he's kind of good at those three things, but then as soon as he opens his mouth between songs, the air gets sucked out of the room. And you can't, it's like trying to coach these guys. I've even been hired when I was in Nashville to coach singers that were in the pop R&B style thing, and to try to get them, look, you're a great singer. You could sing your ass off, but you need to learn how to work the stage. Let me show you. We're going to start the song. You're going to come walking from off backstage. You're going to grab the mic. You're going to get into your stance. You're going to belt out a couple notes. Then we're going to go work stage left.
Yep.
And I try to walk them through the whole thing. And after one rehearsal of that, they basically say, I don't want to do that. And that's it. They just pull the plug on the whole training, which is like, dude, if you get that down, and I've seen enough front men to do it. I don't consider myself a front man, but I've certainly seen the ones that don't do it. And I've seen the ones that do it, to be able to walk somebody through. This is what you do. Work this side, go back to the middle. Now work this side. Now, when you hit the high note, drop down on your knee, all of the common tricks, and reaching out to the fans, and connecting with people, looking people in the eye when you sing to them. And it's like they either have it or they don't. You can't, it's very hard to get people to listen to you, because they think, oh, they're just trying to tell me what to do. No, I'm trying to get you so that you're undeniable to a record label. It's undeniable that this person has it. Not just the voice, not just the look and the voice, but the whole performance package.
Yeah, not only that, people love going to a show with, if I've seen many bands, boring frontmen, won't see them again in concert, but you go to a band where the frontman is out there and the charisma, and has to be authentic. And I think that's when I called Doug. I saw Beach Balls, and he was on Beach Balls. I was like, man, this guy has some like charisma. And I found out that, wow, that's a real singer. And I watched his videos from 87 and 86, 87, 88 with like Rock Me. And I was like, holy shit, this dude's spinning around, stage left, stage right, making eye contact with the girls. And they're like, whoa, and going crazy, staying on key, didn't miss a line, smiling the whole time, the biggest smiling. And it was the whole show like that. And I was like, holy crap, this guy hasn't, like, this is it. This is the frontman. Adam had that. A lot of the guys had that. And I don't think the genre, the 80s hard rock genre, gets enough love because of that. Like you had mentioned Poison. Everyone in the book said what you said. Technically, Poison was not very good.
Yeah.
But they all said, great show. They were fun, and I was entertained. And Brett was an amazing frontman, and he made it seem like there was it was a amphitheater. It was just packed with people, even though there's 20 people in the crowd. That's a lost art.
Yeah.
That's you can nail that. You can work on the songs later. You can get songwriters. You can, bring in a new guitar player to craft some riffs. But that was, I talked to a lot of guys who's like, we're auditioning singers. Found a guy with the most amazing voice, but he was fat or he had like acne. And he's like, we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I get it because it's a very visual time and genre.
Yeah. And that's why you had all the hair like types ads in the magazines and stuff. Everybody had to have the look and everything. And man, from a kid coming from Virginia, when I first got out there, I had like a John Stamos mullet. So I just did it. No, like you couldn't grow your hair like Bon Jovi and live in the 10,000, people town that I grew up in. So, it took a while to even get the hair length. I still got my hair today, which is,
yeah.
which
Well,
is,
you had
amazing.
amazing hair in the 90s. From the
it,
videos
it,
I saw,
it grew. And that
hair.
was the thing when I joined the band, they said, well, but his hair's kind of short. And the bass player goes, but it's healthy. He could tell.
Yeah.
He goes, it's going to grow. Just let him be in the band and eat, garbage for a few months. The dead cells will grow out of his head.
Well, something I didn't know was that how many guys got extensions back then. I didn't know. And Doug Starr was telling me a story where he was singing, flipped his head back, and his extension piece like landed on the drum set or something. I was like, wait, you guys do that? And he's like, we all did it, or most of us, those without like really healthy hair. And he's like, we all get extensions because you had to have the hair.
Yeah. That was the one thing our bass player, he had hair like was like Tom Kiefer, but it was like down to his ass, dude. His hair was just like, and it was all natural. He was Italian, and girls just loved his friggin' hair, dude. That guy he was the bass player in the band, and he had more women than anybody. It's like he had the easy gig in that era was the bass, because they would literally, like, if you got a guy that could just play the root and play eighth notes, that was the gig. And we would be writing riffs, and the bass player would go, well, when am I supposed to play? And we call it dumb guy. Go, just do dumb guy on A until dumb guy. Just play dumb guy until I get up there and come up with a bass line. I mean, it was like that because everything was sort of focused on the guitar,
the
singer, and the drums had to be, the guy had to be bashing the hell out of the drums.
You had to spin the stick every like quarter song. You had to do the high lift hit, for the slower beats. Yeah, that was I love that stuff. And I mean, I grew up in the 80s. I was a kid, but I remember we did two things. We'd go to the grocery store and we'd sit there for hours and read the heavy metal magazines, and just look at the pictures. Like, we were amazed at the fashion. Like, oh my God, they're wearing like who figured out how to wear bullets as belts? Genius. Like a kid, that was the coolest thing in the world. And then there was MTV, also very visual. And it was all visual for us. But, it was a lot of, we loved the music too, but it was just a cool aspect of the scene.
Yeah. And that, I moved out there with another guy from Virginia who ended up in the band Lancia and Atomic Punks, right?
Yeah.
But we were both, He had an Alan Jackson mustache and a mullet. I had the John Stamos mullet. So we were not dude, and no girls would look. We go in clubs, and dude, girls would just completely ignore you. And then you get. And I remember when he got in Lancia, he goes, dude, they want me to shave my mustache. I'm like, dude, shave the fucking, get that damn mustache. Come on, dude, just do what they tell you to do. And sure enough, he was telling me, like, played one show at the Roxy, and next thing you know, he's in the back alley making out with some girl. I'm like, there it was, dude. All we had to do was just get the hair right and get into a band.
No facial hair. The only guys that had facial hair was like a few thrash metal guys, and it was a very
Kip Winger.
Yeah,
Kip Winger.
Yeah. Kip had it.
But it was stubble. It was stubble. It wasn't.
It was like 3-day burn or something.
Just 5 o'clock shadow almost. Yeah. But man, the fact that scene now is, it's a museum down there. It's not.
I moved to, this is in the 2000s. I moved to the Bay Area, and I was like, this is great. I'm in California. We got the Bay Area thrash scene, Sunset Strip. I'm going to go like see the relics and learn and just see what's left. And Bay Area, no thrash guys, no thrash club. It was like, it looks like it never existed. And when I went in the Sunset Strip, it's quiet, nobody out. I didn't see any flyers. I think I saw one band, and they were like just no front man, like terrible guitar player. And I was like, I gotta go. I was like, this is depressing. And every time I've been invited after that, I was just like, I can't go, because in my head, I grew up with hearing about it and seeing it a certain way and reading about it and then talking to all these guys. That's like, I don't want to see it another way. I'm just hoping that one of these kids out there now, the generation coming up, that they, find value in something like that. That it's not BLA, but hey, why don't we make a little scene? Why don't we, find some clubs, and we'll hone in, and we'll really get a couple other bands. We'll help each other out. Let's try to make something of it. And that's my hope for the future. But it's just, yeah, it's kind of depressing in some ways.
Yeah, and that's something I liked about your book, is you said at the end that the template that these bands use, and I've tried to give this information. Even 10 years ago, I was making videos about handing out flyers and how you do that, and getting out there and pounding the pavement, and the how much fun you can have doing that, because it is a template. And think about if we mixed that template that you described, all the guys living in a house, writing as many songs as you can, as quickly as you can, living together, promoting together, going out, handing out flyers and all that. And then you combine that with all the technology that we have now. Oof, dude, yeah. It'd be a lot. Imagine if I was in the Shock House now, and I had my social media, and I could be TikToking from the waterbed at the Shock House, going, hey, I'm over here with Cindy. Cindy's my new friend, and we're going to be playing the Roxy tonight, and maybe we'll make some more friends. Cindy, would you like to make some new friends? Yes, I'd like to make some new friends. Like, come on down to the Roxy tonight, dude. We're going to be partying. Clink. I mean, think how you could do that.
Even when you're handing out flyers to film that, like, because you're going to meet people, you're going to get into situations, you're going to get invited to parties. You're just going to have fun being out there, especially with how many people you guys used to run into out on the street. That is the party. And if we could film that, I mean, there's a few videos online of, somebody took a camcorder on the strip, and you get to see a small part, but I mean, everybody in the book said the same thing, that it was the street, it was the party, it was like you had to go out, you had to promote, but you wanted to because it was, unless you didn't like people.
Yeah.
But
Anything could happen. You could literally walk right, get out of your car, be out in front of the Roxy, and then all of a sudden get pulled into a limousine or get go end up at a party. And I had several friends that because we'd bring our friends out to help us promote, and they would end up going off with some girl, and dude, their whole lives changed one night on the Sunset Strip. All of a sudden they go off and they get married for 10 or 12 years or whatever. And we're like, dude, we just wanted to hand out flyers. I'm not trying to get you married.
yeah, I think that's missing from today's, everything now is so online based if you're a band. But I don't remember the last time I drove down the road and seen a flyer. But I know if I did, I would look. Holy shit, a flyer on a telephone pole. Like Lost Dog or band. Like, let's find out. Um, but what you guys went through out there, it's there's so many stories and connections that came from that. Did you see a change when the flyer ban happened? Did you see a very aggressive shift in show attendance?
Yeah, and it's something I meant to talk about earlier. Learning in your book that when Bill Gazzarri died, that he may have had a way. We don't want to give it away because I want people to read the book. But he had a way of keeping the police off of the kids' backs. So you'll have to. It's two people in the book back up and say this, and I was blown away by that because it started. You putting this all together, man. This is such important work. The book American Song, late 80s on the Sunset Strip, and the band's on the verge of breaking big. I'm going to encourage everybody again to get this book, and that's Dr. Starr on the cover of the book, jumping off the Hollywood sign there. I mean, Bill Gazzarri knew that there was great value in allowing the kids a place to hang out. And the party was often more happening on the street than it was sometimes in the club. Sometimes because once you join a band, you were able to go in and out of the clubs. We could go, hey, we're playing here in 3 weeks. And they just go, walk right. All of a sudden, you carte blanche, you can go right in the club, for free. You didn't have to pay anything. You're in this, you're in. And all of a sudden, you've got all this access, but you'd go in the club, and maybe the club weren't that many people. There's some band playing extremely loud because everybody played very loud back then, but then the club's kind of empty. So you're like, well, let's go in for 5 minutes, get a beer, and then go back out on the street because that's really where the party. And then, of course, the Rainbow. The Rainbow was always the spot. That was my favorite bar, like of all of the whole thing. Everything kind of always ended up at the Rainbow. You would work the street, you would hand out the flyers, and if you had the $5 to get in, you would get 2 drink tickets for $5, and you could go in, and we would get 2 Long Island iced teas. So 2 drinks, you're good. 2 Long Island iced teas. They were in those little kind of medium-sized glasses.
Yep.
But and there were a few times where I'd go up to the door and I didn't have $5, and see the guy in the shiny suit and say, hey man, I don't have the $5 tonight, but I got friends in here tonight, they're going to buy me some beers. Go on, he'd say, he let me in. But once because Bill Gazzarri passed, and once the flyer thing, man, it wasn't overnight, but you knew immediately, dude. They were sweeping. The cops were literally patrolling the street, and they were looking for band guys with flyers. And that's when we did the postcard size, and we would have them tucked back there, so we would be walking around with nothing in our hands. But we still had shows on the books. We still needed to get people to these shows, and we were still trying to get a record deal. It didn't matter that, there's this all of a sudden the cops are just, and I saw in your book, and I won't give it away, but one guy went and did time.
Yep.
And dude, here's the thing. For a while there, before all this crackdown, it did feel like you could do anything you wanted down there. And the stories of guys going up there was that bank right around the corner from the Rainbow, and people going up on that parking deck. That was you might as well have turned that into a motel and just thrown mattresses on the ground, because people would go up there and do God knows what. I mean, I always like the comfort of a nice bed, but hey. So, and then once those cops started doing, I mean, dude, that puts a serious, that all of a sudden it just felt different. Now you could still pay the $5 and go in the Rainbow, and it'd still be packed full of, dudes and long, chicks and all that. But it definitely, what it kills is the girls from Orange County that drove all the way up, 5 of them in a pickup truck, or 10, maybe even 10 of them. And they're getting hassled, and nobody's handing them flyers now, and they can't meet the band guys.
It sucked the fun out of it. But I don't get why LA did that, because someone had bought it in the book. This scene was bringing a lot of money to LA. You got all of a sudden thousands of people there venturing there. They're spending money. They might not have much, but they're, shopping. They're going to restaurants. They need a place to live. That's money that's coming into the city. And if you think about it, crazy rock and roll, drugs, booze, but you guys were pretty good overall. I mean, there was no mass murders. And to what you said, that you could pretty much do whatever you want. I had multiple people tell me that, but it seemed like, everyone most people looked out for each other. It was a somewhat safe area.
It was way safer than Hollywood Boulevard.
Yep.
And I had lived off of Hollywood Boulevard before I joined the band, and that was dangerous as all hell, man. I've done videos, the horrors of Hollywood, just describing walking to school each day with your guitar on your back and seeing people getting out of cars, that were male hustlers, and getting out of the car nude and just screaming. And all I'm trying to do is go learn how to, play the altered scale over the 5 chord. I don't care. I'm just trying to learn how to play, dude. And I'm seeing one of the guys was Tweaky Dave, who was on Jerry Springer a bunch of times, and he's a runaway that ended up having to be a male hustler, who ended up getting the 3 letters that ended up his demise. And this is this is who you're seeing walking to school each day. And just the filth and the trash. Sunset Strip was wild and it was fun, but it was by today's standards, perhaps it would be tame compared to some of it's tame compared to downtown Nashville right now. Yeah. Because downtown Nashville now is 10 times. I mean, dude, they say there's 300 stages in downtown Nashville. No, none of them are playing original music, but you could go see 100 guitar players easily on
Yeah,
any night of the week.
yeah, and kind of off the strip, there's a lot of cool clubs that do a lot of cool originals. And Nashville is a really cool scene. I was really impressed with it my last visit there. There's just some cool stuff coming up, kind of outside of the tourist area.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know where to go, man,
Yeah.
there's great music. The downtown stuff is just that's like you said, it's tourists and the locals avoid it like the plague. And it is what it is, but it's way more dangerous, way more I mean, here's the other thing, man. I mean, there was that element you mentioned in the book about the darker sort of substances that started creeping into the scene. I can say with authority that a large amount of the girls that were hanging around the bands, a lot of them were using accelerants. They were using biker. I use these phrases to get around any kind of algorithm, ban. So I will say biker accelerants, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. But it was, you didn't realize that they were doing this stuff until you'd get them in the room and they'd say something like, "Don't turn out the light, the evil will come." You're like, what are you talking about? Like they're paranoid, and they wouldn't eat and they wouldn't sleep for 2 or 3 days, and they were all trying to stay skinny, and that was there. But I mean, we knew better than to really get deep into any of that stuff. Look, we're here to play music, and yeah, sometimes we might have a few too many beers and do something stupid, but then the next day you go, dude, that was moronic, and dust yourself off and get back to doing what you're supposed to do. But there was a lot of that stuff kind of, and of course the Guns N' Roses with their penchant for what they were kind of promoting, and which kind of led into the grunge thing, which all took it to a unhealthy place. Dude, I
Yeah.
was more into get up and take a jog. I don't want to like do something that's I don't like needles, and I don't want to hang out with people that do, and I didn't, for a lot of the guys, at least for me, I really liked Appetite for Destruction. I think it's a great album. I think Slash played exactly what needed to be played on that record. But a lot of us who were guitar players or whatever were kind of also going, this is kind of a sloppy, crappy mess.
Yeah.
It just is the perfect sloppy mess for this band and this material. But it's not something that now they regard it as it's the incredible Slash and he's the greatest guitar player in all history. And we didn't really have that perception. I mean, dude, when I would go see Guns N' Roses and Slash would drop down to his knees and he can't get back up, I'm going, this is Spinal Tap, dude.
I think and you're absolutely right. I hear that from a lot of people that are like, "Oh, he's the best rock guitarist." I'm like, he's a good rock guitarist, but he's not a shredder. He's not inventing. Like he's doing a good job. But I think they also don't understand. A lot of people they don't understand what a guitar player is supposed to do or does, and they just look at anybody big as being amazing because they're big, which I think is a huge issue I have with music. You talk to people and they're like, "Well, I like this band," and they just rattle off the big bands because to them, big means good. But it's not. There are some amazing musicians and bands that they never got big, but they could blow some of the big guys out of the water,
Yeah, there's a
technically
there's
or
a lot.
sonically.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of that. And dude, there's the other thing, and that's something that I talk about a lot on the channel is if you don't get out of your woodshed, if you stay too long in the practice room and forget that you're supposed to go out and play music and play songs and melodies. I mean, all of this stuff that you see on the internet and the chops and everything. I mean, it's impressive, I guess, but you think about if I was going to produce a record and somebody had written a hit song, I'm not having the guitar player play any of that shit. Dude, you're not going to get to play any of that stuff on a hit record. If you want to be, I mean, like Sean Lane was a guy that all of the elite shredders worshiped. He was a Memphis guitar god, right? But none of that stuff, he got so great and playing over everybody's head and all this stuff that you just languish in obscurity. You
It's like
can't.
Inge Malmsteen. Amazing, technically like superior, but it's nothing you'll hear on the radio. It's nothing you're gonna be like, man, that song is like I gotta listen to it again and again. It's a guitar player's guitar god.
Yeah.
But the regular people seems like the more three chord simple stuff, straightforward, catchy, memorable. Um, Especially I think I'm wondering if maybe that hurt too um, in 89, 90, 91, because look at MTV 90. It was very straightforward, basic. And I, as a kid then, I know we were kind of like tired of MTV. We're like, this is it's a little too simple.
Yeah.
It got boring. And that's when you started seeing Alice in Chains, Faith No More, that were doing something technically and sonically very different. It wasn't better necessarily, but it was very different. And you really saw it 92, 93.
Yeah. And that whole decade, it became uncool to play anything flashy.
Yeah.
So as a guitar player, it was a good thing I left LA because I would have completely had to dumb down everything all the time. When you go and you play different styles of music, when you play blues, well, you can play blues as good as you can play blues. If you're playing, jazz or smooth jazz or whatever those styles, or if you're a chicken picking country guy, they'll let you play as great as you can play that style within the framework of that style. But now all of a sudden, if you're a rock guy, you've got to sound like a 5-year-old with his first guitar. And I can do that. I did that a lot on stuff that I would have to play on. Somebody would call, hey, can you do some solos on these things? And I go down there and I knew right out of the gate, man, I can't play anything flashy, nothing fast, a lot of two-string bends, bwah,
Yeah.
bwah, bwah, that
The
kind of
reverb
stuff,
and
and real,
yeah.
dissonant, kind of letting the strings ring too long and noisy and nasty tone and all of that. And it's a style. It's like anything, you can analyze music and go, and that's how I ended up writing kind of grunge stuff, is like, well, this is what they want. And people would go back and listen to the grunge songs, and they were waiting for the solo. We're waiting to see what you're going to do when the solo comes. And I had just changed my approach. It was a lot less. It was a lot less flashy. And it's like in any gig, you
Did
got.
you enjoy playing that though?
Well, for
Or were
me,
you?
I like writing songs. So it did feel like a natural progression, because you had all this kind of Van Halen-esque kind of stuff, and I had guys who would pull me aside and play me Alice in Chains. They go, dude, listen to this. And here's the thing. I ended up, a girl that I dated ended up with Mike's not Mike Starr, but Mike Inez.
Okay.
So I had a indirect correlation. I would hear from her, oh, when Lane sings at rehearsal, oh my God, he's got this powerful like voice. Like she would tell me, she would go to the rehearsals, and even though she was dating him, I would still had inside information. And he'd go out on the road and then she'd be by herself, so she'd call me, that kind of stuff. But I knew that was going on, and actually that style of vocal was something that I could do. I could sing that style. I couldn't sing the high tenor stuff that the 80s guys with the really high voices,
Yeah.
but I had that low growl with the bellow and so I could do all that. And it was just a matter of copping the vibe. You can analyze a piece of music. It's what AI does now. It analyzes music, and you tell it, give me a grunge song, give me a smooth jazz song, give me a country song. and it just, okay, you're going to need this guitar sound, you're going to need this groove, you're going to need these chord changes, and now here's your grunge thing. So for me, I was always writing songs, and I started realizing, hey, I can't write about just getting laid and drinking beer anymore. I've got to write about the fact that I'm struggling and life kind of sucks, and and these different topics like that. But we had over at one time 100 songs.
Oof.
We had a board in our rehearsal room, and we had said we're going to put 100 songs on there. So if you write 100 songs, you're guaranteed to have at least 5 to 10 good ones.
Yep.
And we would have them in all different styles. Okay, we had a category. These are all funky, because we were doing, like, at one point in time, almost Chili Peppers-esque type stuff. Then here's our ballads. We've got 5 ballads. Then we've got experimental, weird, edgy stuff. And that's, we would have all these different categories. So we knew that if something popped, we've got this trough of stuff. Once you get too busy, you get pulled into the business, you don't have time to write anymore, and you're too tired.
Now, would you build a set list out of the breakdown? Like, okay, we're going to put a funky one in here. We'll start with a.
Yeah, you would be rehearsing the songs and picking the ones that you thought were, worked best, depending on who was singing for the band, what worked best for their vocal, and trying to put something together that flowed well. And but that's a whole different ball game, assembling a 60-minute show that's boom, 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 and then break in the middle with the slower song, and then boom, 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 and finish.
Big finish. Yep.
Then going to Nashville and playing gigs with no set list, having no idea what you're going to play before the gig. You ask the band leader, what are we going to play Friday? Oh, we're going to play some songs. What kind of songs? American songs. Okay. And I did that so many times, where I eventually got to the point where I knew every song that the guy was going to call, because I'd done enough gigs.
Wow. Yeah.
And I learned that was the best way. If you were a Jedi warrior of music, you show up with no set list, and you look at your audience, and you call audibles. It's like reading the defense, and going, oh, they got, okay, yeah, I got it. Okay, here's what we're gonna do, and then adjusting as the game goes on. Each play, reading they're tired. We've worn these people out. Let's slow it down, give them a chance to breathe, go hit the bar, all of that stuff. So these are things,
Wow, that's cool.
stuff that you learn, doing it. I don't know that I would ever do original music that way, but you could certainly call audibles if you're like, man, this crowd just wants to keep going.
Yeah.
Ditch the ballad, dude. Ditch it. Ditch it. We'll use it
Yep.
for an encore or something. Maybe we'll just try and wear them out, and then maybe they'll accept it at the end. And if they don't, we'll ditch it then too. But sometimes you could suck the air out of a room by playing the ballad.
Yep. Or the new song, that the experimental song. What what album or concert like made you want to pick up the guitar? What was that one album that was like, holy shit, I got to do this?
I'm different than probably all of the guys down there. A lot of guys, and we'll send a shout out to Ace Frehley, who just passed the day before we filmed this. And I was I was a Kiss fan, but an indirect Kiss fan. My friends liked them, and so I'd go over to their house and they would play their Kiss records. But the weird thing that I got that pulled me in was Elvis. I was a little kid and I saw one of those ads, Elvis Presley, and you hear, you ain't nothing but a, you hear Hound Dog, and the sound of that voice screaming and that guitar in the background, and 50s rock really, like, it just it fired me up as a little kid, and that's and I got to see Elvis twice, which was
Really
70s Elvis, yeah, and the jumpsuits and all that as a
yeah,
little
the
kid.
rhinestones. How was that? Was he put on a good show?
Mind blowing, because I'm a little kid. It's like my first concert, and we're up in the cheap seats, but all seats were like $12 back then. So you're up there, and Elvis, they come out with the drum roll, and it's That's All Right, Mama, and he had an orchestra, he had backing vocalists, he had no light show, no screens, no pyro, none of that. Basically just a spotlight and a few lights on the band, but a huge band. And he's just down there. And back then they would build the stage on boards. And he comes out in the jumpsuit. And back then you had the Instamatic cameras with the little, the flash that stacked on top of the thing. Yeah. And the whole arena lit up with the flash bulbs going off. Soon as he walks out, dude, it's like pop, pop, pop. It's like paparazzi time 30,000. And he just, gets up there and he starts, doing That's All Right, Mama, and the band's doing its thing. And yeah, it was mind blowing. And his voice is just bellowing through the whole room. He didn't need, all he had was a spotlight. The reason why he wear a white jumpsuit is so you could see him. So everything, for me, kind of siphoned through that. You got to have that kind of charisma. You got to have to be a front man. David Lee Roth had it. Jim Morrison had it.
Yep.
But they were probably guys that, I know Jim Morrison was an Elvis fan. You listen to that style of voice, that low thing. Yep. It's a crooner. They're crooners.
Yeah.
And so, that's, for me, that was weird because that was it. That was my mom's music.
Yeah.
But I just, something about that 50s, the stuff from the 50s. I like the 60s, 70s stuff, but that was more campy and not as cool as Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock and, all that stuff.
Now, what was the album or band or concert that made you want to go from Virginia to LA in 86?
You got to figure that's Van Halen.
Yep.
I mean, that was the whole, seeing the David Lee Roth videos. There's the Eat 'em and Smile promo stuff where he's sitting at the like hot dog stand and he's got the two blondes, and he's, hey man, and all this. And then here's another one. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes.
Dude, you see Fast Times at Ridgemont High and you just go, Well, this looks a lot more exciting than high school in my town.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and
Exactly.
I want to be Spicoli. I don't want to care about anything. I just want to ride that wave and craft the perfect buzz. That's those two things, man. Van Halen was the catalyst. I was still trying to cop Van Halen style thing in 88, 89, playing with Shock. It was similar. It was, to me, it was funk and rock. I
Yeah.
mean, Van Halen was playing KC and the Sunshine Band and Ohio Players when they were a cover band.
Yeah. Now, did you get to meet Dave out there? I know he was on the kind
There,
of
yeah, there was.
involved in the scene a little bit.
I didn't meet him, but there's a story I talk about where I'm at the Rainbow. We're standing in the middle. I've got two of my buddies on each side. David Lee Roth is across from us with Big Ed, the bodyguard. And we're standing there, and all of a sudden, these two girls just come up to my two friends and they just start making out. And I look over at Dave and he looks at me like, and I'm like, he's like, he's probably thinking, like, well, why aren't they making out with me? And I'm just going, I'm in the middle of this shit, dude. I don't know what the hell. I mean, it would literally, shit would happen like that. All of a sudden, you're just, because they come up and they say hi, and I don't know how two people just get pulled into an embrace like that instantly, but back in those days, it would go down like that. Just two magnets would come together and just, it would be a force that you couldn't stop. This is a train wreck that's going to happen.
Oh wow.
So that's man, this has been an amazing conversation. I'm gonna say that we're gonna do this again sometime, my friend. I'm gonna have you
Definitely.
back on the channel. We've been going for almost 2 hours, and I had planned on doing
Nice.
about an hour and a half. But I'm going to tell everybody to get the book, American Song, late 80s on the Sunset Strip, with Dr. Starr jumping on the front of the cover. And it's an amazing book with an incredible inside perspective on the Sunset Strip. Phillip, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This was
Thank you.
absolutely incredible. And let's do it again, brother.
Great. Yeah, appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Thanks,
brother.
Brad.
Have a great night.
You too. Thanks, Brad.